that they'll want to know, when they say what's his name, they'll want to know which midah, which characteristic, which attribute is Hashem revealing himself through the Geula. What is the midah that Hashem reveals through the Geula? And of course, it has to be understood that a midah, what a midah is, a Kadosh Baruch Hu Ba'atz Muso in himself is beyond any kind of understanding that a human being can have. But we do understand to a certain extent in the way that he interfaces with his creation. We see sometimes Hashem is merciful, sometimes there's a midah of din, of strict justice. So what is the midah? What is the midah by which Hashem will conduct the Geula? That's when they said to him, what is his name? Not what is the midah through which Hashem will reveal himself through the Geula from Mitzrayim. And Hashem answered to him in the next pasuk, and he says, "Vayomer Elokim el Moshe." God says to Moshe said to Moshe, "Ekia asher ekia." This is the name. I will be that which I will be. Now, Ekia is a name of Hashem. The Rashbam says that it's actually the names Yud Kei Vav Kei and Aleph Kei Vav Kei, Aleph Kei Yud Kei are the same. One is, so to speak, from Hashem's point of view, how Hashem refers to himself, Ekia, and Yud Kei Vav Kei, Hashem is the name which is, of course, the Yud denotes the masculine singular, so that's the way we speak about Hashem, so to speak. But this is the name, Ekia Asher Ekia. What does this mean? This is the name of the Geula. And the reason why this is important, apart from anything else, is that the Geula which we wait for on a daily basis parallels the original Geula. As it says, if you look at number 2 in Sefer Micha, Kimei tzeitzcha me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu niflois. Just as when you left Me'eretz Mitzrayim, I will show you in the Geula Atidah, the Geula to come in the future, b'mheimah Romeinu. We will see the same, we will see miracles. And in point of fact, if you daven Nusach Sfarad, you'll know in the Kedusha of Keser, in Musaf, Hein ga'alti acharis kareishis. Behold, I have redeemed you, acharis kareishis, the end, the latter one as the first one. So what we will expect to see in the Geula that's coming, B'ezrat Hashem B'korov, will be a parallel, will be a rerun, so to speak. There are things that we can learn from Geulas Mitzrayim, because that's the way it'll be in the end. And therefore every detail of the Geula from Mitzrayim is relevant to our future. Now the Arizal says that the name Ekia, the Gemara of Ekia is 21, right? Aleph, Hey, Yud, and Hey. 21. And if you take Ekia, Asher Ekia, you take that I will be, that will I be, you turn the Ekia by itself, you get to 441. 21 by 21 is 441, which just happens to be, and it's not that it just happens to be, but it is, and we'll examine that a little bit, the gematria of Emes. Thank you very much. And Emes or Emet is truth. Therefore, the name Emet, which follows, is something which is based on a doubling. Something which is parallel, multiplying something by itself. You understand what I'm saying? The gematria is a multiplication of 21 by 21. Ekia asher ekia means that Emes is in some way a revelation to the ultimate degree of emes, it parallels the multiplying of something by itself. This is the essence of emes, true emes. It's something where each part of it becomes, so to speak, extrapolated, becomes extended to the maximum it can be. We've seen this concept before. Do you want to? I don't know if it's getting picked up by then. You could turn it off, it's fine. I don't know if it's going to bother the recording, but it certainly bothers me. Thank you very much. This idea of something which is double, paralleling itself. The ultimate expression of something is the thing times itself. For example, as we've seen in previous shiurim when we've talked about the number 7. 7 is this world, 7 days of creation. The 7 days of creation, the 6 days of the physical creation, followed by Shabbos, which is the completion of Olam Hazeh. Olam Hazeh is 7, Chanukah Bris Milah is 8. There are 7 notes in the diatonic scale, 7 scales in the rainbow, as we've said many times before. And if you want to get to the essence, the maximum extrapolation of 7ness, the maximum that this world can ever be would be 7 by itself, which is 49. That's the 49 days of the Omer, leading up to the point of the 50th day, which is a day beyond this world, so to speak. That's the day of Shavuos. And that's why we don't count it. We can't count what 50 connotes. Of course, there's a number 15, but as we said before, that's something which is beyond counting. It's beyond being able to put into the confines of mispar, of number. In point of fact, Mitzrayim, just parenthetically, is Meitzer Yam, is a boundary. Meitzer is a boundary placed on Yam, which is Gematria 50. The whole idea of Mitzrayim is to limit, to keep things within the bounds of this world, to not allow the Jewish people to achieve that supernal connection to what 50 represents, and that's why they had to leave Mitzrayim and go into the desert to Har Sinai on that 50th day to receive the Torah, which is beyond this world. So the reason I'm saying this is because to understand this idea of something double by itself, Ekia, which is Hashem's name, which is I will be that I will be is emes. The ultimate emes, the ultimate expression of emes, only comes through this process of Ekia Asher Ekia, which is the Geula Shlema, which we are waiting for. As we said, Achris Gereshis, paralleling that Yetzias Mitzrayim, that original Golus. We are in the last of the 4 exiles, Babylon, Porus and Madai, Persia and Media, Yovan, Greece and Rome. And here we are, right at the end, waiting for the Geula, Achris Gereshis. At the end it will be like the same. Ekia, Asher Ekia will be revealed. That truth, that emes will be revealed, and it's going to be revealed in a very special way, just as it was when Moshe went to Klal Yisrael, and when they asked him, what is the Midah? Basically he was saying, the Midah that you will be revealed, you will be deemed by, is the Midah of emes. Ekia Asher Ekia, 441. Let's have a look at the Medrash. A Medrash we've spoken about before, but in a slightly different context. Rabbi Simon says in the Medrash that when Hashem was about to create mankind, the Malchei Asharis, the ministering angels, were divided as to whether man should be created. Hashem, so to speak, showing the Anvanusa Shel Mokum, the humility, so to speak, of Hashem, consulted with his Pamalia Shel Malia, his heavenly court, whether man should be created or not. And some argued against man's creation and some for it. The Malach, who represented, Malach of course is translated into English as an angel, but angel is a very loaded term in English. A Malach is basically an agent, a being who has a specific tafkid, represents a specific purpose or end. So the Malach, which embodied, personified, if we can use the word personified, it's not a person of course, but embodied. And of course embodied is also got a good word because angels don't have bodies. But of course language breaks down here. But the angel who encapsulates, there we go, maybe that's okay. Chesed, kindness, argued that man should be created. Why? Because man is gomel chasadim. Man is capable of doing chesed. The Malach representing Emes said, Al Yibare, do not create him. Do not create man. Why? Because man is kula shkarim. He is all falsehood. It's not just that man tells lies. That is his essence. He is a shakran. He's kula shakar. And the Midah of tzedek, of righteousness, says that man should be created because man is capable of doing acts of righteousness. And Shalom, the Midah of Shalom, said, no, al Yibarei, don't create him, because man is full of katata, of argument, of controversy, of machlokas. The Medrash relates a very strange thing, that ultimately Hashem, at the end of this vikuach, this heavenly argument, took emes, took truth, and he threw it down to the ground, as it says in the book of Daniel, V'atashlich emes arza, and he threw emet to the ground. And the ministering angels, and the Medrash says, Rabbanu Shalom, how can you so denigrate, how can you lower emet, which is your your seal? And the result was that Ta'ale, Hashem says, Ta'ale emes mina aretz. Let emes rise from the ground. As it says in Tehillim, in Psalms, emes me'aretz tatzmiach. Emes will sprout from the ground. Very strange, difficult to understand Medrash. Again, Hashem, at the end of this vikuach about the creation of man, what man's creation was all about, and this argument. At the end of this argument, Hashem took Emes, who argued against the creation of man. Because Emes, the Emes that existed in this Medrash, is an Emes which is not soveil, cannot tolerate, like oil and water. It cannot tolerate sheker. Do not create man. Because man's essence is shkarim. Emes can say no other. And what does Hashem say? Vatashlech emes arza. And he threw emes to the ground. And the ministering angel said, how can you do this? How can you throw down your emes, your seal? The very imprimatur of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is emes. How can you do that? And the answer is, Tale emes minish haaretz. Let emes rise from the ground. As it says in Tehillim, emes me'aretz titzmach. Emes will sprout from the ground. All this is in note 5 if you want to have a look at it. And maybe we'll just read it now in Hebrew, as you now know what it's going to be saying. This is the Medrash Rabbah in Bereshis Parashas Ches, Piska Chet, Ches, Amar Rabbi Simon. Said Rabbi Simon, B'shah sheba Kadosh Baruch Hu livros es ha'olam, es ha'adam. When Hashem came to create man, Harishon, the first man, Naaseh malchei ha'shares kitim kitim. The ministering angels made themselves into groups, chaburos chaburos, and various sections. Mehem omrim al di'barei. Some of them said, don't create. Excuse me. And some of them said, Yibare, create, do create man. How would it serve, as it says in Tehillim, Chesed ve'emes nifgashu. They fought. Tzedek v'shalom nishku. Chesed oime Yibare. Chesed said, create him. Shu goimel chasadim, because he can do chesed. Ve'emes omer al tivare, shekula shkarim. He's all lies. Tzedek omer Yibare, create man. Shuosei tzedakos. He does righteousness. Shalom omer al diyabare. Don't create. Tekule katota. He's all argument. He's argumentative. He's all argument. He's all machlokas. Maaseh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what did Hashem do at the end of this? Not al emes. He took emes. Ve'eshlichu la'eretz. He threw it to the ground. Ha'ud ichsiv, as it says in the prophet Daniel, Vatishlech emetz arza. Hashem threw emes to the ground. Omru malachi Asharei, said the ministering angels, Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rabbanu Olamim, Master of the worlds, Ma ata mavazer tachsim al tichsia. Why are you being disparaging, you're denigrating your very seal? Tale emes min haaretz, said Hashem, let emes rise from the ground. Hadu chesiv, as it says in Tehillim, emes me'eretz titzmach. The truth will sprout from the earth. So let's understand this. Let's first of all understand what is this denigration, this throwing of the truth to the ground. Why does Hashem have to cast emes to the ground only so that it should rise up again? Now this pasuk of Vatishlech, emes arza, is quoted in connection with a pasuk describing Golus. There's a vision of Daniel where Daniel has a dream about the four exiles. And of course it's all shrouded in symbolism and deep ideas. And he has a dream. I raised my eyes and looked, and behold, a ram is standing before the stream. This has horns, the horns are high, but one is higher than the others. I saw the ram going, I cut a bit there, I saw the ram going westward, northward and southward. And no beast could stand before it, nor could anyone rescue from its hand. It did as it pleased and it grew. This is a dream about the four exiles. Eventually, what happens is that Daniel describes how a tzfir ha'izim, a young goat, destroys this isle, this ram, who was powerless before it. The tzfir ha'izim, this young goat, was extremely strong, and how its single horn became four. Rashi explains this as a reference to the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. This is basically the exile of Rome. And those words will be quoted from Daniel in the Medrash, Vatashlech emes arza, were mentioned precisely in this context. In other words, they describe the Golus of Rome, in which we find ourselves today. As we've described in previous classes, we're in the longest of the exiles, which goes on, which starts with the Romans, and then when the Catholic Church and the Eastern Church take over, and then Western culture, we're still in the exile of Rome, of Edom. And that's the destruction which was wrought by Titus. That's Rashi saying the Beis HaMikdash was just talking about this Tzvi Izim, this young goat, refers to the nation of Rome who destroyed the Beis HaMikdash by Titus. And it's specifically that Golus, the exile of Rome, in which we find ourselves today, through emes, because ein emes ala Torah, ela Torah. The Torah's emes. Emes was thrown to the ground by this fourth exile, more than any other, lowering it down. As Rashi says in Daniel, Vatishlech emes, tashlech emes arza, Torah's emes hishpila. This exile lowered the Torah to the ground. The answer to the questions we've been asking are that essentially there are two stages of emes. There's emes, there's an ekia, I will be, which is the unfinished, if one could say such a thing, form of emes. And there's ekia asher ekia, which is in its doubling 441, which is the gematria of emes. Emes in its completed state. The emes which cannot surveil sheker, as we said before, is the emes which says, do not create man. But man was created, and emes thus was thrown down to the ground by the Romans in the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash and the Torah, thrown into the dust. But from there it will sprout. And the concept of sprouting is, if you'll forgive the pun, germane. It's absolutely apt. Every act of planting, as we mentioned in previous shirim, is basically, if you've ever planted a seed, you'll know that when you plant a seed, the plant doesn't grow from it. What happens when you plant a seed is it rots. The seed rots to a point of almost complete non-existence. There's a Gemara, similar idea, in Maseches Truma, which asks the question, what happens, is an egg from an animal which is a treifa, not a tome animal, we're not talking about a bird of prey, a chicken, let's say, a kosher animal. But we know that this animal is a treifa. What does it mean, a treifa? A treifa means a kosher animal which is not going to survive a year. It has, before the year is out, it will die. It has some lesion on the lung, it has some disease which will make it die within a year. This is called a treifa. Now, an egg from a kosher animal, which is a treifa, can you eat it? Is it also a treifa or not? And the psak is no, it's not. You can eat it. Why? Because, maybe we should look at this Gemara here now. Avagabi Beitza. This is note 10. This is Talmud Bavli. Seches Truma Daf Lamed Aleph. Aval Gabi Beitza Ema Godla Lechi Masrach. Because when it grows, the chick, the egg. I'm sorry, I said this wrong. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Etch a sketch. Back up. We're talking not about an egg. We're talking about a chick. A chick that was hatched from an egg from a Beitzah Treifa. Can you eat the chicken? Is the chicken going to be kosher? Or is it going to be a treifa, seeing as its mother was a treifa? And the answer, it's kosher. Why? Because in order for this chick to come to life, the egg had to rot, to become foul, malodorous, decompose, and it's only through that process of decomposition that, and when it becomes no longer edible, and only after that it becomes a new life, and therefore you're permitted to eat the chick. It's an entirely different entity from the treifa which laid the egg. The point of it is this, as we said before with the seed, underlines how this process of growth involves an initial state of degeneration. Emetz la'arza, emes is going to be cast down to the ground. The Torah is cast down to the ground. The way emes will re-emerge in its perfect state is only through this process of decomposition and becoming regenerated. That is the stage of, that's the ekia asher ekia. In other words, the process of emes me'eretz titzmach, that this emes sprouting from the ground, this more complete kind of emes, is a much greater emes, is a more complete emes. That's the ekia asher ekia than the emes which said, don't create man. Man's job is to reveal emes in the world. And man's job, and this is really where we have to go into another medrash. the process of Golus and Geula is the same pattern as this, so to speak, regeneration. The Jewish people, and of course the Sefer Shmos, is the Sefer of exile, of Golus, where the Jews go into exile. It's the same kind of, so to speak, decomposition, and only from that Golus can come the Geula. It's from that decomposition, so to speak, that comes the true growth. And of course, when we're talking about Golus, we're talking about the Golus of all the Jewish people throughout the whole world. The Ma'aseh of a Simon Labonim, the actions of the father, an indication to the children. We understand that the Golus of Mitzrayim, the exile of Mitzrayim, is an archetype of all of the exiles that the Jewish people have experienced. As we said, Bavel, Paras Madai, Yovan, and Romi, and now this Roman exile where we find Jews in every place in the world came out. Now the Medrash says that Hashem only spread the Jewish people across the world in order to increase Gerim, converts. And it notably proves this point from our Pasuk, V'zaratia li ba'aretz. I'm sorry, not our Pasuk, the same word. V'zaratia li ba'aretz. I have sown her for myself in the land. The same idea of zriya, of seeding. And the Medrash explains this whole idea by a mashal, a parable, of the one sows, plants, a seah. It's a small measure of seeds. You don't sow seeds in order to get back the equivalent of what you planted. That's a bit of waste of time. You want to get back many fold, many times. You want to have a yield of a core, a much larger measure. That's note number 11 from the Gemara in Maseches Pesachim. I'll read that out. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Lo hagla HaKadosh Baruch Hu es Yisrael ben ha'umos. The only reason Hashem dispersed us amongst the nations, Ela kadei she yitosfu aleihim gerim, that they should be added to them gerim. Shnema v'zaratia li ba'aretz, that I have seeded you in the land. Klum adam zorea so ela lahachnis kama kurim. A person only seeds a small amount of soil in order to have a vastly greater return on his initial investment. Now clearly we can't be talking about the literal understanding of Gerim, because numerically Gerim in Klal Yisrael are very few. So what are we talking about? What does Gerim really mean? In fact, the Arizal explains that the reference is not to the number of actual converts. What are we talking about? Let's try and understand. It's the same idea of casting emes la'arza, down to the ground, the sowing of emes, which is going to sprout an emes which is so much bigger. That is the concept of Gerim, the why the Jewish people have to go into exile. And there's a concept, you may have heard of it, in the more Kabbalistic writings, which is called that the Jewish people have gone into exile to reclaim the Netzotz HaKadusha, the sparks of holiness. That's the same idea as the Zriya, the exile, bringing forth a greater truth, a truth where falsehood is going to come to admit to truth. This is the second kind of truth, the greater kind of truth. There's a truth which rejects emes, but the greater truth is when the sheker itself is modeh to the emes, admits to the truth. This is where the emes, so to speak, is cast downward, and all the sheker will rot and sprout forth from that a greater truth, a complete truth, a truth which has basically been through the process of disintegration, has been sown in the ground, arza, emes la'aretz titzmach, and sprouts forth from the ground in the process we described. Sheker's announcement, Sheker's falsehood's confession, its admittance, is the greatest form of the revelation of truth that they can be. Again, there are two kinds of truth. There's the truth in heaven that said, don't create man. That's the truth that cannot tolerate sheker, like oil and water. the greater form of truth, which is why Hashem wanted to create man, because man will be the instrument of how the greater truth can be revealed. In the time of the Geula Atida, the Ekia Asher Ekia, the truth in its greatest form, the doubling of the Ekia, the 441, the truth in its most perfect form will come through the lowering of the Torah into the dust, so to speak, to the land, and the regeneration, where through this process of seeding Gerim, this will be the result by which the whole world of Sheker that we live in, every culture has its Sheker, every culture has its, and this is why they hate us, because there are Jews in every culture who sit there and they learn their Torah and we refuse to become part of the host culture. And that's something which is basically, and by doing this, we highlight, we illuminate what their sheker is, and they know it. When a Jew learns Torah, that's like a powerful light which makes the sheker admit upon itself, I'm sheker. And for that we're hated. And we can understand why that hatred is. Because that's a searchlight, that's a blowtorch, which pierces through to the very heart of that culture and makes it admit about itself, yes, I'm sheker, this is nonsense. I mean, we all see this. We're all very influenced by the secular world. But if a person owns up, he sees that it's a world of absolute sheker. Emes, true emes, arises from attempts to nullify it. The greater the nations of the world, the cultures of the world that we've been through in our exiles, the greater their attempt to seal our mouths, to put an end to our Torah, as the Romans tried to do, as the Spanish Inquisition tried to do, as the popes in Rome tried to do, as Yamach Shemot tried to do. All that is basically feeding the process of emes me'eretz titzmach. It was this that Daniel was prophesying. When Daniel was prophesying about the four exiles, and as we saw with that posuk right at the beginning, where he says that emes will be, the aretz tishalach will be thrown down. That's what he was saying. It will be thrown down, yes, but it will convert. It will bring up with it all the admittance of all the sheker, and that will be the greatest revolution of the truth. Maybe one other point. The book of Shemot, the book of names, as we said, marks the passage from the realm of the Avos, the forefathers, to the Banim. But it's interesting because every day we say in the Amidah, Umevi Goel Livnei V'neihem Laman Shemo Ba'ahavo. Why do we say that Hashem brings Geula to Li B'nei B'neihem? Why doesn't it say Livneihem? Why to their grandchildren? Children of the children. The children of the Shvatim. The Avos of the Avos, that's the Sefer Bereshis. The Banim are the names of Reuven, Shimon, Levi, the tribes that went down into exile. Why don't we describe Geula as something which comes to the children and not to their grandchildren, or what it really means is their descendants? Because the Banim are intrinsically connected to the Avos. All of their names are associated with the Geula. The Medrash, number 14, Medrash Rabbah, Shemos Parsha Aleph, Piska Hey. Ve'elu Shemos B'nei Yisrael, Al Shem Geulas Yisrael Niskaru. When it says Elu Shemos B'nei Yisrael, all of the names are connected to the Geula. For example, Reuven, as it says in Posik in Shemot in Gimel, Ra'a re'isi es oni ami. I have seen the affliction of my people, says Hashem, and He'll bring the Geula. So Reuven is a name of Geula. Shimon is a name of Geula. How do you see this? As it says in Pasuk Beis, V'yishma Elokim es nakosam. Hashem hearkened to, heard their screams, their cries. Shimon, Shmiya, name of Geula. It's only, in other words, that the Shvatim were intrinsically connected to the Avos. Because, and we, as I just demonstrated, their names were directly associated with the Geula. They, by virtue of the fact of their connection, they, so to speak, exist in a realm of Geula. Golus, exile, the book of Shmos, the descent into Egypt, can only be applied to their children, to the grandchildren. Because those grandchildren, the Bnei Banim, it's only that Hashem can bring Umevi Goel Livnei V'nehem. The Geula can only come to someone who's in Golus, and who's in Golus? The Bnei V'nehem. Us, the grandchildren, the descendants. We are no longer connected to the Avos in the way the Shvatim were, Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Because the true manifestation of Golus, through which the emes, and only the emes can grow, through the putrefaction of Golus, through the exile, the emes la'aretz titzmach, the emes will be thrown down to the ground. That can only come through the grandchildren. The children themselves are too connected to the Avos. That ultimate revelation of Geula, of emes, can only come through the Bnei V'nehem. It's important to understand that Golus is not a period which is characterized by an unpleasant lifestyle, a time of difficulties, and then we're going to be very comfortable in the Geula. A person, Geula is a rebirth, is something as traumatic and dramatic as the birth of a child. Something, that's the Geula. It says we talk about the Ichvasa de Mashiach, the birth pangs of Mashiach. This is not merely a nice simile, a moshal, parable. There will be a mapecha, an overturning of the current order in a way which will, for somebody who's not unprepared for it, he'll be completely shattered by it. We're going to see a world very soon where everything that the world holds to be dear, in a split second, will just be revealed to be nothing. The most cherished beliefs, values of the secular materialistic world, all its values of style, of celebrity, of money, of culture, are going to be shown, and everybody will see it, will be completely worthless. People will be shaken to the quick. They will have nothing to hang on to. It's like, quite literally, the rug will be pulled from under everybody. And that will be the revelation of Sheker being modeh to emes. And it'll be traumatic. It'll be as dramatic and possibly as painful as that process of a birth. Each one of us is trapped in our own world of Sheker. Let's be honest. It's very difficult. We dream their dreams. We wear their clothes. We are so enmeshed in the sheker of the world, the secular world, of this final exile, The time, the book of Shmos, the book of names, is a time where we, the B'nai V'neihem, our job is to connect, to realize that our job in Golus is to reveal that emes which has been cast to the ground. And it's through us that sheker will be revealed. And Hashem should help that we should be able to prepare ourselves adequately for this tremendous earthquake, this tremendous upheaval which is coming very soon. And wake ourselves up from this very comfortable dream that we have our little niche here in the secular world, and to rise to the status, rise to the level where we will be the ones who will be the agents by which sheker will finally confess, admit, and emes, the Shem Ekia She'ekia, that Hashem will finally, I will be that I will be, that Hashem's name will be revealed to all the nations of the world. May it come speedily in our days.